The Ottoman Empire is remembered for its vast lands, towering mosques, and unmatched wealth. But behind the golden walls of Topkapi Palace, a far darker story unfolded, one that few dare to speak aloud. Inside the Sultan's harem, silk could mean a sentence, beauty could be deadly, and a single misstep could end a life. The world outside saw luxury and power, but inside, the concubines lived under constant terror. This is a story of survival, of ambition, and of punishments so horrifying they echo through history. From being thrown into freezing waters to witnessing rivals vanish in silence, these women faced the extremes of fear and manipulation. Every smile hid calculation. Every whisper could determine life or death. The Sultan's favor was the ultimate prize, but it came at a price that would make most hearts shiver. This is not legend. These are the documented horrors faced by women whose lives were trapped in a gilded cage, ruled by jealousy, paranoia, and the unyielding desire for control. Today, we uncover the 5 most terrifying punishments faced by Ottoman concubines, revealing the grim reality behind the palace's splendor and showing how power, fear, and survival intertwined in a deadly dance of silk and blood. Sultan Ibrahim I, driven by suspicion and jealousy, became a living nightmare one cold night. Dozens of concubines were seized from their chambers and thrown into the icy palace fountain. No ceremony, no mercy, just the horrifying splash of silk and bodies vanishing beneath frozen water. Diplomats' letters, censored accounts, and whispered memories confirmed that this was no rumor. Behind the gleaming image of the empire, luxury had become a trap, and beauty could bring death. The harem was not a serene garden. It was a machine of power where every woman, every servant, and every guard played a role in an intricate system designed to protect the throne. From the moment they arrived, women lost their names, their past erased, and their futures left to fate. Some rose to unimaginable power, becoming the mother of a sultan and ruling the empire from the shadows. Others fell, their lives erased quietly, leaving only whispers in the corridors and shadows in the memory of the palace. In this world, a single birth, a single death, could alter the destiny of millions. Survival depended on cunning, loyalty, and sometimes sheer luck. The harem's walls concealed ambition, betrayal, and the darkest extremes of imperial authority. Life inside was a constant struggle between desire and terror. Each concubine's path was fraught with danger, and the lessons of history show that no beauty, charm, or talent could guarantee safety. Luxury hid cruelty, perfume masked fear, and the echoes of the past remind us, behind every gilded window, someone had endured horrors that defined the fate of an empire. The origins of the harem stretch back to 1453, when Mehmed II, the conqueror, captured Constantinople. A city of domes and mosaics became the heart of a new Islamic empire, stretching from the Balkans to Arabia. Inside its conquered palace, an institution emerged that would shape the dynasty for generations. The harem wasn't created for entertainment, it was a fortress of power. Every woman brought in, whether a daughter of captured nobility or a slave purchased from Crimea, the Caucasus, or the Balkans, lost her real name at the palace gates. Each was given a new identity, often Persian, Arabic, or Turkish, and her past vanished. Her future became a gamble, tied entirely to the Sultan's whims and the cruel hierarchies of the court. Above all stood the valide sultan, the Sultan's mother. She was the ruler of the harem, and one of the most powerful figures in the empire. During the period known as the Sultanate of Women, figures like Hurrem Sultan and Kazem Sultan proved that a concubine could rise to become the empire's hidden ruler. But this power came at a staggering cost. To rise, a concubine needed a son and had to keep both herself and her child alive until he could ascend the throne. Every pregnancy was a battle. Every cradle became a weapon. Brothers grew into rivals. Mothers became enemies. The silent halls of Topkapi, with their marble courtyards and golden lattices, were battlegrounds where every move could mean survival or death. The palace guards, black eunuchs from sub-Saharan Africa, were childhood-mutilated servants tasked with enforcing the harem's strict rules. Over time, figures like the chief black eunuch held tremendous influence, bridging the world of the harem and the empire's highest offices. Meanwhile, the city outside buzzed with rumors, whispered stories of forbidden affairs, mysterious deaths, and betrayals. To the public, the harem was both fascinating and terrifying. To European diplomats, it was an obsession, exotic, scandalous, and meticulously chronicled in letters sent to capitals across the continent. But the truth was simple: the harem controlled the empire's future. A single birth or death could determine who ruled millions. A concubine's silence, a eunuch's loyalty, a mother's ambition, any of these could reshape history. This was no peaceful sanctuary. It was a pressure cooker where only one woman could ascend to ultimate influence, and her rise meant the downfall of every other contender, new arrivals entered the harem as slaves, chosen for their beauty, intelligence, or artistic skill. Some were trained to sing, others to dance, while a few were taught poetry, calligraphy, or etiquette. They were groomed like pieces on a chessboard, every movement calculated, every smile a tool. Behind polite faces, fierce competition simmered. Pregnancy became the ultimate turning point. One child could elevate a nameless girl to unimaginable power, and everyone knew it. Rumors of poisonings, hidden miscarriages, and secret plots spreading through kitchens and corridors were never dismissed as legend. They were survival tactics. In this world, only one woman's son could inherit the throne, and every other contender was a threat. At the center of the power struggle was the valid sultan. She could issue commands that influenced grand viziers, military leaders, and even foreign envoys. Some, like Kazem Sultan, built sprawling networks that reached every corner of the empire, manipulating alliances and decisions from the shadows. Others crumbled under the pressure, swallowed by the very palace that had elevated them. Eunuchs became the harem's eyes and ears, controlling letters, guarding secrets, and feeding the sultan carefully curated truths. A single concealed message, a timely favor, or a whispered rumor could elevate a prince or doom him. Luxury in the harem was a fawade. Behind crystal chandeliers and marble floors, life was a constant tug of war. Beauty was a weapon. Silence was a shield. A seemingly innocent smile could conceal a deadly plot. Every misstep might be fatal. And yet, some women managed to turn this gilded prison into a ladder to history. Hurrem Sultan, wife of Sulaiman the Magnificent, rose from concubine to queen, funding public works, supporting mosques, and shaping the empire from her chambers. Later, Kazem Sultan transformed the Sultanate of women into a long-lasting political force, ruling through her sons and grandsons for decades. But every triumph carried tragedy. For one mother to ascend, another had to fall. In a system where succession was a battlefield, brothers became rivals destined for death, often strangled in silk to prevent rebellion. The palace was more than a home, it was a crucible of power, where every breath could be a weapon and every alliance was temporary. The empire outside the palace walls lived in a world of rumors and whispers. Istanbul's markets, coffee houses, and streets pulsed with gossip about who controlled the sultan, which prince was favored, and which scandal had toppled a powerful figure. Yet the real battles were silent, unfolding in the halls of Topkapi. The harem, designed to protect dynastic continuity, had become a machine that consumed lives. Every generation added tension, and the more authority was concentrated within its walls, the more fragile the empire became. The system finally erupted during one of its darkest chapters. By the late 17th century, Ibrahim I, known as the Mad, sat on the throne. Years of confinement had left him psychologically unstable. Paranoia and impulsive cruelty consumed him. He trusted no one and feared everything. The harem became the theater for his erratic whims. European chroniclers reported that in one night, nearly 300 concubines were accused of betrayal and thrown into the freezing Bosphorus. Eunuchs carried out the massacre without hesitation, turning water into a silent grave. Whether exaggerated or not, the story captured a core truth: absolute power could annihilate hundreds in a single night. During Ibrahim's reign, the harem was a battlefield. Concubines fought to secure their children's futures, eunuchs traded secrets, and foreign ambassadors bribed for influence. Suspicion poisoned the air, and every gesture, every smile was analyzed for hidden intent. Ibrahim's obsession with scents, fabrics, and appearances blurred affection with brutality. The palace ceased to function as a government and became a stage for grotesque theater. Laughter, luxury, and terror were inseparable. The streets of Istanbul felt the chaos. Military failures mirrored the disorder inside. Wealth disappeared, women vanished, and public fear grew. The harem, once a center of careful political control, had transformed into a mirror of the empire itself, fragile, paranoid, and teetering on the edge of collapse. The breaking point came when the Janissaries, the empire's elite soldiers, had enough of the chaos. They revolted, removed Ibrahim from the throne, and soon strangled him, ending his reign of terror. In that moment, the harem revealed its true nature: not a sanctuary, but the heart of a system where silence, ambition, and fear ruled over life itself. Even the powerful Kazem Sultan, who had survived husbands, sons, and entire factions, could not fully contain the chaos. She managed fragile alliances between eunuchs, viziers, and military groups. But Ibrahim's madness pushed everyone to the edge. After Ibrahim's death, the harem became a battlefield of influence. Concubines vied for their children's futures, eunuchs traded secrets as currency, and foreign diplomats sought favors and intelligence. Suspicion hung thick in the air. Every word and gesture could be interpreted as betrayal. Stories tell of concubines forced to march in bizarre costumes, their lives manipulated to suit the Sultan's whims. Under his rule, the palace was no longer a functioning government. It had become a grotesque stage where cruelty and extravagance were inseparable. The cost of this turmoil was enormous. Princes were isolated in the golden cage from childhood, growing up with no friends, no freedom, and no understanding of the world beyond the palace walls. Many ascended the throne mentally twisted by isolation. Others were murdered before ever leaving their chambers. The harem, originally intended to protect the dynasty, had become a machine that drained the empire from within, consuming lives and shaping rulers in its own dark image. The powerful women of the harem, once central to empire politics, lost nearly all influence. Many were sent to the old palace, another gilded cage where they spent the rest of their lives in quiet obscurity. The eunuchs, however, gained authority like never before, controlling information, influencing sultans, and becoming the true power behind the throne. Outside the palace, the empire was weakening. Vienna held firm against Ottoman armies, borders shrank, and repeated defeats reflected the palace's internal chaos. The streets of Istanbul mirrored this instability. People suffered famine, plague, and war while the palace hosted lavish feasts and glittering ceremonies. The harem had ceased to be a symbol of stability and had become a machine that consumed wealth, lives, and hope. Every new sultan inherited not just a throne, but generations of corruption, fear, and paranoia. Princes raised in isolation grew up with warped minds, unprepared to lead, and constantly haunted by fear. Some ascended with suspicion and cruelty ingrained. Others were killed before they could step outside their quarters. The cost of this decay was measured in countless human lives. Hundreds of concubines, eunuchs, and servants vanished quietly, their existence erased from history. The empire's polished image hid a factory of suffering. The harem, meant to preserve power, had instead become its moral undoing. With each generation, cracks appeared in Topkapi's walls, as if the palace itself sensed the slow collapse of its former splendor. Today, the imperial harem no longer exists, its rooms converted into museum halls, its windows filled with art and artifacts. Yet the true legacy of the harem is not found in objects, it is in what remains unseen for centuries. The harem shaped sultans' minds. Princes learned suspicion before leadership, paranoia before power. Valid sultans demonstrated that women could dominate viziers and armies, but only through a system built on trauma. Every mother who ruled did so, while other children were strangled, exiled, or erased. Over time, the harem became a reflection of the empire's darkest truths: ambition, cruelty, and power intertwined with human suffering. European travelers in the 19th century saw the harem as a symbol of exotic decadence, often eroticized and misunderstood. They painted women as powerless ornaments, ignoring the deadly politics that shaped every aspect of life inside the palace. For Turks building a modern nation, the harem was a shameful stain from the past, hidden behind textbooks, silence, and national pride. Yet, silence never erased history, it only buried it deeper. The true legacy of the harem lies not in jewels, fabrics, or gilded rooms, but in the lives that were erased, the names that were forgotten, and the tears that stained its walls. Luxury survived, but humanity did not. Walking through Topkapi today, tourists admire mosaics and fountains, unaware that countless lives were controlled, silenced, and sacrificed behind the stone walls. The harem was never a sanctuary of pleasure. It was a laboratory of power. Beauty, obedience, and the ability to bear heirs were all weaponized. Some concubines endured humiliating examinations, relentless training in dance, poetry, and etiquette to secure the sultan's favor. For his attention meant life, and indifference meant disappearance. Nights were filled with fear as women waited trembling, praying either to be chosen or to be spared. European envoys recorded concubines paraded before the sultan, judged not for love, but for survival. Behind every smile, every bow, every gesture, the machinery of control worked silently, and eunuchs orchestrated it all. The hierarchy revolved entirely around intimacy and influence. Who gained access to the sultan's chambers? Who bore his children? Who lost favor? Who plotted revenge? This was not romance, it was survival. Even centuries later, the silenced voices, the missing names, and the lives turned into currency challenge us to understand the human cost of power hidden behind gilded walls. Remembering, the harem is not just an academic exercise. It is an act of justice for the thousands reduced to shadows. It reminds us that when power is locked behind walls, suffering becomes normal, abuse invisible, and exploitation a tradition. The past cannot be changed, but it can be told. Every retelling cracks another layer of silence and brings another forgotten life into the light. Today, Topkapi's domes stand unchanged, but knowing what they concealed changes everything. The harem was a place where absolute power did not need armies or sword silence. alone was enough to control lives. That silence spread through the empire, shaping rulers, influencing decisions, and leaving a trail of fear. The chambers, once alive with schemes and whispers, now display artifacts to visitors. Yet the true legacy endures as a warning. Even the greatest empires can feed on anonymous bodies. Politics can disguise itself as care, and ambition can consume entire bloodlines. The domes and gardens still shine under the Istanbul sun, but beneath them lie memories of manipulation, coercion, and silenced intimacy. The harem was never a paradise, it was a crucible where sex, loyalty, and violence intertwined, where beauty and intelligence were weapons, and survival demanded constant vigilance. Every life, every silence, every sacrifice shaped the empire, and the echoes of those choices ripple through history. This is the darkest inheritance of all. Luxury remains, but the human cost is immeasurable. Behind the silk, behind the smiles, behind every golden window, countless lives were controlled, silenced, and erased. The harem was the heart of a system that consumed itself, and through it, we see the true price of power.